Alright, what's up guys? My name is Zach, and today I am driving a 1978 Pontiac Catalina Safari. Up front is a 400 cubic inch V8, and down below is a 4-speed manual transmission. Now, I am super excited to be driving this Catalina for 2 reasons. First of all, it's an old 70s boat wagon, which I love. But the second reason is the fact that this has been manual swapped. I've never reviewed the 400 engine and a manual, so these never came with a factory stick shift. A previous owner actually swapped one in, and we'll talk about it here in a second. But I think we're gonna have a little bit of fun here today in the Catalina Safari. But if you'd like to submit your own vehicle and have it reviewed here on the channel, you can head on over to my website, zackpradel.com/submit. It's a quick and easy submission form. It takes under a minute to fill out, and I come out to you. And if you'd like to see all my videos weeks or sometimes months in advance, you can head on over to my Patreon for only $5 a month. But let's get back to that 6.6 liter V8 under the hood, better known as the Pontiac 400. Well, first of all, let's see what it's all about. I don't really know where the red line is, so I'm just kind of guessing. That felt right. The 400 was one of the best engines from Pontiac and was kind of the top dog for a very long time. However, it did get quite neutered during the oil crisis. And so in the late 60s, it took over for the 389 and was kind of the cool kid at school. But by 1978, which this is actually the final model year it was offered with the 400, or the final model year that the 400 was offered in anything, it was pretty neutered and barely making 200 horsepower, which is still fine, but definitely a shell of its former self. These engines are also incredibly reliable. So when talking about classic cars, if you pull one of these out of a barn, you're gonna have a lot better of a chance of it running than, say, a 307 or other engines like that. So something really neat under the hood is these little orange thingies. So there's one over there, as you could see, and then one over here. This is very, very early, very basic, rudimentary, basically OBD2. So GM dealers would have a special tool they could plug in and diagnose certain things on the engine. So very, very cool. I haven't seen these on one of these cars. Most people rip them out because they're not very great systems, but a predecessor to OBD2 that we still use today. Very, very neat. Now, like I said, paired to it is a 4-speed manual transmission. And interestingly enough, it's an A833, which is a Chrysler transmission. The transmission itself feels fine. It is pretty stiff and unforgiving, but to be expected of something that came out of a literal pickup truck. And it's not meant to be in this car, so when you shift it into first, if you have the ashtray open, it'll hit it. If you ever wanted someone to be sitting in the middle seat, good luck, they can't anymore. But man, does it make this thing fun to drive. This is an absolute hoot and a half. And it really just wakes the whole vehicle up. I've always loved these wagons and vehicles from this era, but they've always been dog slow. And I'm not saying that this is Speed Racer by any means. The manual just wakes everything up. It gets you involved. It just gives you that little extra enjoyment in a car that it was never ever supposed to have the manual. So that has been very, very special. Last but not least, of course, the Catalina Safari is rear-wheel drive. How does it feel to drive the Catalina Safari with the manual transmission? Well, it drives very interestingly because I'm shifting gears and in my head I'm thinking, oh, you know, 400, big block, strong, muscle. But then I'm also stuck in the body of a wagon that has body roll for days and just doesn't have almost any athleticism about it. It's like when you meet an older person and their mind is sharp but their body's failing them. That's how this feels. This wagon's mind is sharp, but the body is not. And so it's really fun to drive. It's entertaining. I don't know if I'd want to take this on a racetrack or down a twisty road, but out here in the middle of central Illinois, nothing but cornfields, this is definitely the hot rod of choice. With that stuff out of the way, let's talk about the interior. Well, in front of me, I have a couple of gauges. So off to the left is the speedometer. In the center is a tachometer that the previous owner added when he swapped in the manual. And off to the right, we have our fuel, battery voltage, oil pressure, and coolant temperature. On the steering wheel, we don't get anything. Has the Pontiac badge, but that's about it. And off to the left, we have our washers and headlights and a climate vent. This was a factory AC car that we'll talk about here in a second. Moving on to the door, we do have our manual mirror option because this only was optioned with a driver's side mirror and not a passenger side mirror. Manual windows, but power locks, so very nice to see that. Moving into the center, we get the radial tuned suspension badge. Some weird marketing jargon. We do have a switch for the rear window, so the window all the way at the back of the wagon does go up and down. Very, very cool to see that. And then we have our climate control. So like I said, this was a heat and AC vehicle, and AC was the most expensive option, which is about $581 option back in 1978, which I will put the 2026 price up on the screen, adjusted for inflation. That is a pricey option to get. But if you wanted it, you could get it, but now, all these years later, it doesn't even work, so, you know, there's that. Then we do, of course, have an aftermarket radio, the ashtray that is useless when the vehicle is in gear, and then we have our shifter in the center. As I mentioned, this is not the original shifter, nor the original shifter location, so this is all fabricated and built, especially for this particular car, which is cool to see. And of course, the Catalina Safari doesn't have any cup holders, so it fails the big friggin' bottle test. And then we have the upgraded seats. They're a little bit nicer than the factory base model seats that would have came in every other Catalina. And they're nice and comfy. You know, they're bouncy. They're this old style of seat that I'm used to in big boat cars like this, but I'm not used to chucking my own gears on a seat like this. So very, very cool to feel. And I totally understand why people do bucket seats now. Shifting gears on a bench seat just kind of feels weird. However, speaking of seats, we do have 2 more rows of seating, so let's go do some backseat reviews. All right, getting in the back of the Catalina Safari wagon, and just take a look back here. It is absolutely lovely. Close the door up. First of all, plenty of knee room. Obviously, 5'11", not a small guy, pale as hell! And I fit back here pretty well. So, couple of things to note. First of all, these are the nice seats. These are the upgrade seats as well. I just love looking at this door card, the intricacies, how beautiful just this is. Like, there were probably several designers that worked just on the door cards. You don't see that in modern vehicles anymore. We do have a couple cool things back here. So this is the original radio. So obviously, as I mentioned, the radio had been swapped out. This is the original with an 8-track player. Very, very cool. So that's been pulled out. But this is what we came here for. This is a couple of things. First of all, this is the 78, I was reading it upside down, Pontiacs. So these are the brochures for all the different Pontiacs. Obviously, page 1, got to do the Firebird. Well, actually, page 1 was the Grand Prix. Then the Firebird and all of these fantastic cars. Some really, really cool literature. Look at that. Sunbird Formula Sport Hatch. That is freaking cool. So I love these old brochures. Tom was kind enough to leave this in the car. Try to get some good shots of all of this stuff. The wagons are at the back. Try to flip through here as fast as possible. The Phoenix. I've done a Phoenix LJ, but not this generation of Phoenix. Safaris. There we go. The Grand Safari, the Catalina Safari. Very, very cool. But then this, it's covered by 2 pieces of cardboard, is the original window sticker. So as I mentioned, air conditioning, $581. The 6.6-liter 404-barrel V8 engine was a $180 option. Built in Kansas City, sold in Albuquerque, New Mexico originally. Here are all of the options and whatnot for a grand total of $8,100. So very, very cool to see this. This is the original window sticker, if you've ever been curious about what they look like. So very, very special. Anyway, headroom is good. Obviously, the space back here is very, very good. Very comfortable. Even though it is shorter than the outgoing Catalina, it's still very comfy and great. So let's hop into the back because we do have a third row, and then we'll talk about the looks. All right, coming around the back, before we talk about that, I do love the fact that it came from Quality Pontiac in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I love when dealers used to do actual badges on the back. It was special. Now they're just stickers that mess up your clear coat. But coming around the back here, we do have a handle here to open the entire door up, and it operates like any other car door, which is very, very cool. However, as you'll notice, the rear window is rolled down, and we'll talk about that in a second. But when it is rolled down, there's a handle here, and now you can fold it down like a tailgate. Very, very cool dual opening tailgates here in 78. Such a cool and unique feature. You also can roll this up and down with the key. So push it in and twist, hold it all the way to the right, and it will go up. It's a little slow. Hold it to the left, and it will go down. So again, just twist it to the right, and it goes up. So I'm going to leave it up, but the window has to either be 100% up or 100% down in order for the door to open. But let's open it up here and talk about the third row. So you did not see the third row on that window sticker because this actually wasn't originally optioned with it, but a previous owner went and found a third row and bolted it in. So it was an original option, just this specific car didn't get it. I hope that's clear enough. So we can push it up like that. You get your rear-facing third row. Take a step in here, kind of awkward to get into. And there we go. Now I'm in the third row, rear-facing row of the Pontiac Catalina Safari. Close that up, and there we go. Tons and tons of windows here. And we were talking about that, the owner Tom and I, that modern SUVs in the third row, it feels like you're in a cave with a box of scraps. And now this is like a fishbowl, you know, under the seat, you know, that sort of thing. So I love, you know, the idea of riding back here, looking out and just, you know, experiencing the world that way. So incredibly cool. Rear-facing third rows are super cool. They're not super safe, especially in a rear-end collision. You don't want your children to be the first line of defense, but they are very unique. So that is very, very cool. Let's talk about the exterior and then get back to driving this awesome manual swapped beast. Now we gotta talk about the looks, and this is finished in cameo white, and I like it. You know, it's a pretty simple car. It was pretty basic. It did not get any wood paneling. Didn't even get a passenger mirror, as I mentioned earlier. All of this is very, very basic. Now you will notice too that it is shared with a lot of other products. I also reviewed an Oldsmobile Custom Cruiser, which is essentially the same vehicle. The up-badging or badge sharing going on at GM was starting to get pretty bad in the late 70s. So you could tell that that's basically the same car. With all of that being said, let's get on to my final thoughts. What do I think driving the manual swapped Pontiac Catalina Safari? Well, it's an incredibly cool car for two completely separate reasons. I love driving these old 70s boats. This is from the era of downsizing. This was actually almost a foot shorter than the previous generation Catalina that ended in 76. This particular car lasted from 77 until 81 and was GM stepping down. It was shorter than the previous generation for the first time ever. This car was 800 pounds lighter than the previous generation. And so it's cool to be driving something on that changing side. You know, the Wagon's days in America were numbered as it is. And by the next decade, the minivan had started to take over. So the full-size Wagon was really in its final hour here. And so it's cool to be driving that. But then also it is cool to be driving something manual swap, something that does not need a manual, never came with a manual, shouldn't have had a manual, and yet it does. And it's this fun burst of energy out of a very tired automobile. It's like when your Uncle Tony gets hip replacements and now he's running and jogging like the younger kids, even though he's 65 and has a plate of prosciutto every night before bed. Maybe that's a singular experience to my family, but you know what I mean. The manual has given this Wagon a new lease on life. It's given this Wagon a reason to stick around. And I find that in life, as long as there's a reason to stick around, you should. Maybe it's not the best reason, maybe it's not the same reason as your friends, but as long as you have a reason, you should stay here. And this manual transmission is my reason today. It's my reason for sticking by this car, for continuing to drive this Pontiac Catalina Safari. This manual transmission is my reason to stay, and I hope it's yours too. Or even if it's not, I hope you find another reason. So no, I'm not breaking any land speed records. This isn't a particular sleeper, although it's quicker than one might assume. It's still a hoot. Chucking gears in a station wagon from the 70s with a big block? Yeah, today's not a bad day at the office. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Huge thank you to Tom for letting me borrow his Catalina Safari manual swap. He's been absolutely wonderful. I've reviewed so many of his cars over the years, always cool and interesting vehicles like his purple PT Cruiser, his LHS, his Imperial, his Plymouth Belvedere, his Fleetwood, all of these really awesome cars from over the decades. Tom loves cool cars, and I love Tom. He's absolutely wonderful, and I always get a smile whenever he texts me because I know he's bought something awesome. And I get to share it with you guys, so I appreciate Tom for that. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Don't forget to rate the video, comment on the video, and subscribe if you really liked it. Take care, guys.